Well, good morning, everyone, and thank you all very much for attending this meeting of Cabinet on Tuesday, the 10th of May. May I begin with apologies for absence? Any apologies for absence? No? Okay, thank you very much. The next is the minutes of the last meeting, which you've had circulated. May I agree and sign? Do you agree? And may I sign these later as a correct record? Thank you. We have disclosures of members' interests now. Are there any members that wish to disclose any interests at all? No? Good. Thank you very much. So now we move into a really exciting report, the COCIP Partnership, which is something that many of us have been looking forward to for a long time, and we are now ready to press the button. Sue, are you going to take us through this?
Yes, certainly. I'll just highlight some elements of the report. So the purpose of the report today is, as you'll be aware, Cabinet, that the Council approved an allocation of £25.5 million worth of capital investment in the COCIP Partnership. But before committing to such investment to the relevant school capital projects, Council officers have met with school leaders collectively and individually in the partnership to discuss what structure of organisation of schools would be, in their view, the most effective in improving the outcomes for pupils in all phases for the long-term sustainability of the partnership. The report sets out the findings of these meetings and as a result of the feedback received by each of the governing bodies of the COCIP Partnership schools to the Council, Cabinet is recommended to approve a 6-week consultation on the proposals for a 2-tier structure in the COCIP Partnership starting on the 13th of May. Just to give you some background to the partnership, prior to 2016, the COCIP Partnership was organised in a 3-tier system, but in 2016, the middle school and high school merged to become a split-site 9 to 18 school, which is something unique in Northumberland. We haven't got another school partnership organised in that way, but we do also have a mixed economy of schools, currently having 5 first schools in the partnership, 1 primary school, and then the James Calvert Spence College being 9 to 18. Details on each of the schools, their age ranges, are contained in paragraph 7 to 9 of the report. Progressing following the allocation of funding by the Council, we did receive in 2019 a request from all the first school head teachers and chairs of governors to informally consult on reorganisations of schools to a primary secondary structure. At this time, the request wasn't supported by James Calvert Spence College head teacher or governing body. Therefore, it was decided without consensus from all schools that the consultation shouldn't be progressed. The COVID pandemic has also led to further delays in making progress in the partnership in agreeing the way forward. However, since 2022, officers, head teachers and chairs of governors have been meeting to see if consensus could be reached on agreeing a vision for the partnership and agree the next steps to ensure the best value for the Council's investment. So, Council officers have met with head teachers and governing bodies on several occasions, both with the full partnership and individual schools, to determine their high-level views. And a summary of the outcome of the feedback of these meetings are set out in paragraphs 9 to 14 of your report. As a result of these discussions, the partnership agreed that there were 4 areas of key issues that needed to be addressed in developing a future structure for the partnership. So therefore there is a need to improve Key Stage 2 outcomes, the need to retain more pupils in the partnership to ensure all of the schools are viable, and a need to improve SEN offer within the partnership in order to meet all the pupils' needs as close to home as possible, and also the recognition that there needs to be some investment in the current building stock within the partnership. So following the meetings with the partnership, there has been an agreed vision set on those 4 key issues that we'll refer back to throughout the consultation process and development to make sure that any models moving forward, would improve the educational outcomes, would improve and extend the SEND offer for children and young people, would ensure that the COCA community supports the education model, will also ensure that schools work together to develop the partnership and create a sustainable, viable model of education for the future, and also that any capital investment would achieve the best value for the council moving forward. One of the key areas from the partnership vision is to improve the educational outcomes. The Ofsted and education outcomes for each of the schools are contained in paragraph 21 and 22 of the report. But really, just to remind Cabinet, the current structure of schools means that we have a split key stage 2, with years 3 and 4 being taught in first schools and years 5 and 6 being taught at James Calvert Spence on the previous middle school site. The key stage 2 assessments, again, didn't take place in 2020 or 21 due to the COVID pandemic. So the last validated data set we have for key stage 2 was in 2019. And as set out in your report, you will see at this time, James Calvert Spence results were the lowest in the county, and that the details are shown in table 4 of your report. But also, as set out in table 5 of the report in paragraph 22, the results from 2019 GCSE results are stronger at James Calvert Spence in comparison to both county and national levels, being positioned 11 out of 16 high and secondary schools in Northumberland, and the Progress 8 scores are also strong, with James Calvert Spence being ranked 6th out of 16 schools. Another key area for the shared vision was to improve and extend the SEND offer. And as members may be aware, the COCA partnership currently doesn't have any specialist provision for children and young people with special educational needs. So the opportunity to explore how those needs could be met closer to home would also form part of this consultation. As currently we have 60 pupils with education, health and care plans that travel outside of the Amble COCA community to 11 different establishments to attend specialist provision. So therefore the general agreement from head teachers is that there is a need for additional SEN support within the COCA partnership, particularly for those children with ASD and SEMH who have to travel long distances outside of the partnership to have their needs met. Another area was also about the viability for the partnership, and although there's significant house building in the Amble area, there is still a considerable drift of pupils outside of the Amble partnership, and currently we have about 450 children leaving the COCA partnership to attend other Northumberland middle and high schools, and therefore any model or development would need to address the drift outside of the partnership. And as we've already said, any model would need to ensure that it delivers best value for the council's investment. And therefore, carrying out a consultation prior to investment is really, and seeking everybody's view on a model for the future before investment is needed. We also need to ensure that the COCA partnership supports the education model in order that the community engages, supports and thrives. And again, this was also a key priority from the heads and chairs. Therefore, in order to seek the views of the community, Cabinet is being asked to support the request that has come directly from the head teachers and their governing bodies of the schools in the COCA partnership to carry out a consultation on the proposal for schools to be organised within a 2-tier primary structure. Therefore, as set out in paragraph 26 of the report, any proposals for reorganisation on the current structure of schools would also form part of this consultation, and that is shown as Model A within your report. And Model B sets out the primary-secondary model as supported and requested by the heads and chairs of governors, and goes into more detail within the report. Whilst we have set out the heads and chairs' views on how they believe reorganisation to primary and secondary would address the issues of improving outcomes and providing a sustainable and viable education system, consultees would also be asked if they have any other models or ideas as to how the key issues set out in the partnership vision could actually be addressed. So if approved, pre-informal consultation would begin on the 11th of May, close on the 29th of June. The report also sets out in detail in paragraphs 4 and 5 how the consultation events will be held, and this time with COVID restrictions no longer applying, there will be at least one public event, as well as meetings with staff and governing bodies at each of the 7 schools directly impacted by the proposals. A consultation document would also be published on the Council's website, to which all interested parties would have access, and the relevant link would be circulated to all relevant stakeholders, including parents that would be sent via schools, staff of the affected schools and neighbouring schools from other partnerships that would also be affected by the proposals. Therefore, in conclusion, overall the feedback received from the majority of schools clearly point to their desire to carry out a consultation on the proposals for schools to be organised within a 2-tier structure. Officers are therefore recommending to Cabinet to approve the initiation of a 6-week pre-informal consultation from the 11th of May to the 29th of June on the proposals as set out in your report today. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sue. I'm now going to ask Guy Renner-Thompson, who's the Cabinet member responsible and who's been doing an awful lot of work on this, to speak. Guy.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. Sue has highlighted in great detail the contents of the report. This is the next stage of our school building programme, which is unrivalled in the North East, if not the whole country. Hainbridge, Hexham, Ponteland built. Now we're on to the consultation for Amble. We've done Berwick, and Seaton Delaval is about to be built there. I don't think there's any other local authority who could, or council administration that could make that claim. This has been going on for some time because we wanted this to be led by the schools themselves, and as Sue has pointed out, this is not a top-down reorganisation of the COCIT partnership. The first schools wrote to us asking for this, and latterly the James Calvert Spence College has written to us asking for this. I'd like to make the point that there will be no school closures as a result of this. All of these first schools can convert to primary schools without problem. One, which is Amble First, would move to the college campus they're building. It couldn't quite make it, but that's not a school closure. That is a school moving to another part of the partnership, which is A-OK. This has a direct link also into what we're doing in Berwick. Alnwick, Berwick and Amble form the northern nucleus of our schools. There are kids moving from Amble to Alnwick that we want to keep in the Amble partnership. There are kids moving from Berwick to Alnwick that we want to keep in the Berwick partnership. By doing this all in one go, we can make sure that all 3 of those schools become sustainable, rather than just focusing on one at a time. So there is method into doing them at the same time. It had been said in the past that Amble was too small to have a secondary school, too small to have a high school. If every house that has planning permission in Amble is built, Amble will become bigger than Alnwick. Amble deserves a good secondary school, a good high school. Amble needs a good secondary school, a good high school. I very quickly put my foot down and said we will definitely have that school in Amble. We will not close it and send those children to Alnwick, which some had talked about. So I'd like to commend this report to the Cabinet, and I'd just like to say to the general public who are watching, we'd like each and every one of you to take part in this consultation. It is a community-led consultation, and we really want to hear your views.
Thank you very much, Guy. Jeff Watson, the local member, who's also been a very strong advocate of this.
Thank you, Chair. Can I first of all say that I really admire the tenacity of the staff to get with this particular project. It's been going on for many years, and it's fair to say, despite what anybody else has said before, there has never been an agreed plan to develop this partnership until we do this proposal. It's never been there, and people think it has, but it never ever was. It was never agreed for all sorts of reasons. COVID has slowed it down, I think, quite a bit, but Guy has said there's so much happening in Amble. There's so many new houses. The population is going to go up enormously. And I'm really pleased to see that this consultation is going ahead. And I think it's also fair to say, I don't care personally which way this goes, which way the public, which way the schools want it to go. I am absolutely neutral on this. We will go the way the people want to go. Whether it's 2-tier or 3-tier, will go that way. But what we will have, hopefully, is a plan that everybody can live with and have proper facilities for our kids in the area, which has suffered for the last few years. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Jeff, any other comments or questions or queries on this report? Just turn to Audrey Kingham. Audrey, do you wish to add anything?
Thank you, Leader. I think just to reinforce some of the aspects that Sue talked about that would be really important within this reorganisation and capital development, but particularly around meeting wider agendas for our children who have special educational needs, and particularly around meeting priorities, meeting children's needs much closer to home. So reducing that transport, it impacts positively on our climate change and our approach in terms of our action plan, but it's actually much better to be educated within the community. So to reinforce the team's work, it's been a brilliant piece of work that's been undertaken. So just to congratulate everyone. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Audrey. I want to thank all the staff that have been involved in this. It's very pleasing to note that Northumberland in 2017, I think I'm right in saying, guys, something like 75% of our schools hit good or better under Ofsted. In 2022, that figure has gone up to 82%. Which is a magnificent example of really good officer work, really good, strong political leadership. I'm very proud of that because we were in the lower quartile. We're now above 2%, I think, above the national average. So that's a great testament to our staff and everyone that's working in schools. And I want to see this COCOT partnership do even better when we get it set up and running. So thank you to everybody involved. And thank you also to Guy specifically for doing an awful lot of work on this. Yes, Guy.
I just want to get those figures exactly right, Leader, because it will be reported. In August 2017, 76% of our schools were judged to be good or better by Ofsted, which was 10% below the national average. As of April 2022, 88% of our schools were judged to be good or better, which is 2% above the national average, which is a large percentage point swing.
That is actually super, isn't it? Marvellous. Okay, so I'm actually going to read out the recommendations because you just have to bear with me for a moment.
Chair, excuse me, Chair, do you want to make reference to the scrutiny report?
Yes, the scrutiny report has been circulated. It talks about being grateful for the investment, the importance of consultation, raises questions around house building in the area and how will that be addressed in terms of pupil numbers, and also around the need to have a staffing protocol and send provision. Those recommendations are all very sound recommendations. They have been put into the system, I believe, Audrey, and so thank you very much to Scrutiny for those comments. And thank you very much for that. So now I'm going to read out the recommendations, which are, number one is to approve the initiation of a 6 weeks pre-consultation from the 11th of May, which is this week, to the 29th of June 2022 on proposals for a 2-tier model of school organisation in the COCOT partnership. Note that should Cabinet approve recommendation 1, the following elements of education in the area would also be included in the consultation, and they are: 1, the SEND offer for pupils in the COCOT partnership area, the early years offer in the COCOT partnership area. Number 3, to note the feedback received during the informal meetings with the schools in the COCOT partnership at paragraph 14 to 19 in this report, setting out their request and rationale for the Council to initiate consultation on a proposal for 2-tier primary-secondary structure in the COCOT partnership. Number 4, to note the draft proposed models of school reorganisation as suggested as the basis for consultation. Number 5 is note the 25.5 million has been proposed in the medium-term financial plan for investment in schools in the COCOT partnership, including for the replacement or refurbishment of the buildings of the James Calvert Spence College at Acklington Road site. And then finally, note that should Cabinet approve the initiation of informal consultation, the outcomes presented to Cabinet may include a recommendation to permit the publication of statutory proposals for the relevant schools in the COCA partnership. So we are up and running if we agree these proposals. Is there a proposer, please? Proposed by Guy Renner-Thompson and seconded by Jeff Watson. Are you all in favour? Please show. That is very much unanimous. So thank you very much indeed, and thank you again for all the work that's gone on into that report, and thank you to Scrutiny for your very valuable comments. The next one is around, again, very good news, the Bus Service Improvement Plan and the Enhanced Partnership. This is report number 5, and I'm going to ask Rick O'Farrell to give a brief outline about this.
Thank you, Leader. We'll keep it brief. Back in March 21, the government launched a new national bus strategy, and this made clear that future funding for buses from July 21 was dependent on 2 things. The first was that local transport authorities, which in our case means the Joint Transport Committee of the 7 LA's 7 local authorities, that the local transport authority entered into an enhanced bus partnership with bus operators in the region. And the second provision was that that partnership then developed a bus service improvement plan to be published and submitted to Department for Transport by the 31st of October 21. The JTC duly agreed that we would enter into a bus partnership to secure future funding, and the bid for the improvement partnership was submitted in October 21. We have recently found out that we have been given an indicative award of £163.5 million. This is significantly less than originally we bid for, but having said that, it is proportionately far more than any other partnership across the country has been given on a pro-rata basis, which reflected the strength of our bid and the strength of the partnership. That split £90 million revenue, £73.5 million capital, and the sort of projects which can be supported are identified in paragraph 8 of the report, Leader. What is now happening is the local transport authority officers working with our officers in our transport team and the other partners are developing the detailed bids, detailed projects which need to be submitted to the Department for Transport by the 30th of June. Most of our projects will be on the revenue side because we don't want huge numbers of bus lanes, etc., which some of our neighbouring authorities need. And the sort of things we're looking at are in paragraph 8 there, the under-19 tickets, tourism development routes. What is missing off there is on-demand services as well, which will be particularly appropriate in rural areas. We will be including some capital projects, and we are talking to the JTC about what they may be, but the focus of our proposals will be around the revenue schemes. There's 3 recommendations, but only one substantive one, which is that Cabinet delegate to the Leader, in consultation with myself, the power to agree the final schemes which are put forward as part of the bid to DFT, because otherwise we won't have time to bring the plan back here, Leader. I'll just take any questions.
Yeah, thank you very much. Wojciech, do you wish to add anything to this?
Yes, CIRIC has set out that really ambitious project which will allow us to subsidize travel for under-90s, do some network improvements, especially in rural parts of the county, develop some tourist development routes, and also subsidize the fares and create a fares cap in the more rural areas, especially where the transport is basically more expensive. But we also need to be tough in the negotiations to secure the best deal for the county. That's why we delegate the decision-making and authorize the Leader to lead the negotiation as part of his role in the Joint Transport Committee. And we have to bear in mind we are very tight with the schedule. It's really ambitious project, but it's also we don't have too much time to develop it properly. So we need to be really careful what we agree to, but I'm sure the Leader will do it in the right way.
I will do my best. Colin Horncastle.
Thank you, Leader. Right, I mean, over the years, we've seen many initiatives from regional bodies and government about various things, and it all sounds great when it's rolled out, but very often it doesn't achieve anything. So I would like to see this actually achieve something, because as a member from a rural area, and we've got members from rural areas up here, it's not just a matter of improving the bus service. In my particular division, I've got 8 parishes, and I've only got 1 parish with a bus. And if, you know, the buzzword now is green initiatives, green targets, you're never ever going to reach green targets on transport in the rural parts of Northumberland, because a lot of those rural parts just haven't got any public transport at all. So my area in particular, I mean, other members have similar but probably border issues. I border Gateshead, I border Durham, and I border Cumbria. So when these negotiations take place with the bus bodies and other authorities, I like to think there's a lot of cooperation between the various authorities, because a lot of people in my area actually would want to go and shop in concert, because that's the closest for them. I've got a place like Blanchland, who has not had a bus service for as long as anybody can remember, but it's not beyond the wit of man to put a small, perhaps like a minibus service on from Blanchland through to Slaley down to Hexham. The same with areas like Whittenstall and Headley, where, you know, it should be possible to have smaller forms of transport rather than the big normal buses run around in these rural areas. I'm just saying this is an opportunity, and I'm sure if it's in your hands, Leader, you know, you'll put these points forward, but it's very important to take this chance to try and improve public transport in the rural areas. Thank you.
Absolutely. Guy Renner-Thompson.
Thank you, Leader. I do represent a rural area, but I have to say our bus service is very good, because up the coast we have the Coast and Castles bus service, which has been championed by the AONB partnership. That it does help that the A1 runs through the middle of my division, and so the buses going from Berwick to Newcastle also link in. So I think compared to where Councillor Horncastle represents up in the very rural, the hilly areas, our coastal bus service is very good. My only request on this would be better east-west connection between the national park and the coast. So if you're in Wooler on a walking holiday and you want to walk on Bamborough Beach, you have to get a bus down to Alnwick, up to Bamborough. It takes like an hour and a half. A nice direct link from those two sort of honeypot tourist areas would be a good thing.
Thank you very much. Any other comments? Wendy Patterson.
Thank you, Leader. Like Guy and Colin, I also look after rural communities. I have 2 or 3 tourist villages which do have a bus, but for instance the village I live in hasn't seen a bus for 5 years, and when we did have one it was a Thursday morning 9 o'clock and it came back at lunchtime. So I would really welcome some rural bus services. I do have one large village, Long Houghton, which doesn't have an evening bus, so that is also a very difficult situation.
Thank you very much. John Riddle.
Thank you, Leader. I think, you know, where the recognising that the tourist is very important and very important to our local economy, I think, you know, our first service has got to be to our local communities. And as my colleague, Councillor Horncastle, has said, you know, we both represent probably the most rural divisions in the county. And, you know, we recognise you cannot run empty buses. That's not any good for anyone or the environment. But these on-demand services would be, I think, much appreciated. Like something like a Go bus that you ring up and book. Even paying for a taxi would be better than running an empty bus. When we talk about the tourist things, you know, a lot of these services are actually run commercially, and we don't have much say about how they are run. One thing that I do know is lacking on those tourist services, though, is the capacity for them to carry cycles. and that's not just on buses but also on trains.
Thank you very much. Any other comments? Can I just say that I think this is fantastic news. It's a very large amount of government money, very much putting the revival and reintroduction of bus services at the forefront of what we're trying to do for all the right reasons. I think it's the X18 that runs up that coastal route, Guy? Yes. So we want to see that perhaps more. We do want to see the linkage to the west, to the national park, as you quite rightly say. We did actually hold a coastal summit recently, one of the second or third in a series of coastal summits that we've held, and I think there's going to be more details on how that went. But one of the key things was that local people, whilst welcoming tourists, do find the effect of so many cars arriving in coastal villages really difficult to live with, and all the problems that overflowing car parks and irresponsible parking in some cases makes. So the more we can encourage people to get on a bus in Newcastle and Morpeth or Alnwick, the better. So that's really going to be a key point in this. Getting more rural bus services anyway is important. That's going to be around getting the service at a time that people need it, at a price that people can afford, and the quality of service and the quality of the bus indeed is really important. I'm particularly excited about the potential pilots for small park and ride schemes. I know of at least 2 places in the county where we could really try that out and see how it works. I'm thinking of Alnwick, for example, where if we can get agreement on this, and there's no saying that we will, that's another example of where loads of cars go in the summertime, find problems getting parked, whereas if we had a park and ride, it would make life so much easier and so much better for the town as well. So that's one. There are various others. And as Rick said, there is potentially going to be some capital available. We know of at least one bus station where we would like to see improvements made. We don't know whether we'll get agreement on that, but I will certainly be trying to get that. And that is hugely important again for the town in which that's placed. So loads of interesting issues to look at in this. This extra money is very valuable, and we will make sure that we get our fair share, and I'm sure we will. So, if there are no other questions, can I take you to the recommendations? Is there a proposal for those? Proposed by Councillor Pushtai and seconded by Councillor Horncastle. All in favour, please show. That's unanimous. Thank you very much indeed. Good. Thank you, Rick. That takes us on to new capital proposals considered by the Opposite Capital Strategy Group. They're before you on Appendix C, and I'm going to ask Alison Elston to take us through those. Should we just go one by one, please, and we'll just take a vote on each one, if that's okay. So the first one is the winter weather stations.
Okay, thank you, Chair. Yeah, the council currently has 7 winter services weather stations in place across the network. They were actually installed in 1988 and 1999, but unfortunately they won't be supported beyond 2022. We currently use the live and historical data gathered from those stations in conjunction with specialist weather forecasters to make critical decisions on the winter services actions and on the treatment of the road network. We actually have a legal obligation imposed upon us by Section 41 of the Highways Act to ensure, so far as is reasonably practicable, that safe passage along a highway is not endangered by snow or ice. The proposal is actually to upgrade the existing 7 weather stations that are in place, but also to add an additional 4 sites across the county, and they are all listed as Section 5.8 of the report. This will mean that we can standardise all of the stations, we can gather more accurate and detailed forecasting and timely information on the road network condition, and it will allow the forecaster and our winter services team to make more accurate and precise decisions. There's £400,000 set aside in the capital programme for this capital scheme, and the breakdown of that cost proposal is at 5.9 in the report, and the Capital Strategy Group are supporting the proposal to replace the equipment at the 7 existing weather station sites and create 4 new sites to improve the coverage across the county.
Thank you very much. Any comments on this one? John Riddle, who takes local services for us as his cabinet responsibility.
Yeah, I think this is business critical that we actually do this. As Alison said, you know, these weather stations aren't going to be supported any longer after next year. You know, they're 24 years old. This is investing. It is making a bigger and better network of weather stations, which will give us more detailed information, which on nights of when it's marginal whether we send the gritters out or not, we'll be able to, instead of sending all 28 gritters out, we should be able to, on certain cases, target which areas we do treat, actually, you know, saving money on grit and actually carbon footprint and everything else. So, you know, I fully endorse this. The other thing is a couple of them are actually on the A69, and I believe that we're in negotiations with whatever they're called now, England Highways England, whatever it is now, to for them to pay for them. Thank you.
Thank you very much, John. That's really helpful. If there are no other comments, can I just have a show of hands on, are we happy with this one? Yep, that's unanimous. Okay, thank you very much. The strategic regeneration and the projects therein.
Thank you, Chair. If we could take each of the bullet points in turn, there's actually a couple of typos in some of the numbers. So in the first bullet point, paragraph 7.3 should be 6.3. In the second bullet point, paragraph 7.8 should be 6.7. And paragraph 7.11 should be 6.10. The Strategic Regeneration Budget was created in 2019 and it was a source of funding to enable the delivery of economic regeneration projects. It allowed the Council to contribute to initiatives that were going to make a positive economic impact across the county, but also whilst unlocking further public and private funding. The profile currently sets aside sums of money for both the Borderland, a number of Borderlands deals and the Blythe Town deal. The Blythe Town deal has now been confirmed and the full cost of that deal is catered for in the current capital programme, but it's also become evident that in the case of the Borderlands project, the point of getting to financial drawdown is going to take a lot longer. So the request from the officers in the first instance is to basically to pull together all of that budget as an unallocated sum. So that is the first bullet point. And then if we agree to that, we would move on to the second bullet point. So the second, do you want to do the first one?
Okay. Right. We did notice the deliberate mistakes. You'll be glad to notice and appreciate. Are there any questions or comments on this? Richard Wearmouth.
Thank you, Chair. So, I mean, basically, just to confirm, this isn't about changing funding from specific projects. It's merely to pool it, to give maximum freedom so that if something needs to happen quickly, it can effectively happen in that way without the need for additional meetings and so on and so forth.
Thank you very much. Any other questions, comments? Quite interesting, actually, just looking at the tables here, that this really does show how much we're investing in all parts of the county, from Alnwick to Hexham to Wooler to Bedlington to Blythe to Berwick. It's just really impressive how much we are spending all over the county on really brilliant projects. So I think this is a sensible way forward, and I think we're all in favour. Could you just a quick show of hands? Yep. Lovely, thank you. And then the next one is around the Port of Berwick. Oh, sorry, there is a second part of this one, yes.
There is, thank you, Chair. So the second part is, now that we've agreed that they can consolidate to an unallocated sum, is to then actually allocate some of that to the projects which have come forward recently in the pipeline. They're the ones that you've mentioned, the Wooler Visitor Centre, Hexham, the Shilbottle, Bedlington and Hexham Town Centres. There's also a proposal to pull forward and reprofile some of the funding that is there for future years into the current year, because we're aware that there are a number of other projects that are going to be coming forward in the next year. And I think it's been agreed with the Section 151 officer that in this instance that is deemed acceptable. They're also reaffirming the criteria for use of the regeneration budget in this recommendation. So this is now using that unallocated sum and actually allocating it to the projects that are listed at 6.7.
Thank you. Any questions on that second one? Wojciech?
Yes, so as we all know, we have been hardly hit by COVID and now current Russia invasion to Ukraine, especially when in terms of the timber and steel cost. That's why we committed already the full budget allocation for this year to borderlands projects like Wooler Visitor Centre and other you mentioned. That's why we need to reprofile it. I think it's a standard exercise which you would do in a situation like this in terms of high inflation, which is affecting the project deliverability. So I just recommend that we go forward with that.
Good, thank you, Wojciech. Any other questions, comments? Are you all happy with the second one? Those show, yep. Guy, happy with it, thank you. We move on to the Port of Berwick pilot boat. Now this might seem slightly unusual, but we had a very useful meeting with the Port of Berwick commissioners and others, and were well taken by their attitude towards the way forward for this very important port. In fact, I think I've seen a photograph of this today, Guy, have I? Yes. Showing a lot of timber there and other things.
There's currently a boat in loading barley for export, and there is a ever-growing pile of timber that's going to the Netherlands for export.
So we want to do what we can to support the port. Well, anything in Berwick that we can help with, we will. But this is particularly around the pilot boat. So tell us about this, please, Alison.
Thank you, Chair. The Council has been approached by Berwick Harbour Commission for a grant of £60,000 to fund a pilot boat. Their current pilot boat is now 49 years old and it only has 1 year remaining on its certificate. So I think the pilot boat has to be certificated every 5 years. There's only 1 year remaining. I think it requires a lot of work. They actually have a cash flow problem as well, which is included in the report, and they've asked the council to contribute £60,000 to fund a new boat. It will help. It's fundamental to the commercial operation of the port, and they're going to increase the use and frequency of the harbour for leisure purposes. They're going to introduce regular boating trips for visitors and residents to do bird watching, dolphin watching, whale watching, as well as viewing the dark skies. They have sourced a replacement pilot boat, which is currently based at the Port of Sunderland. Now, that boat is 21 years old, but still has 4 years left on its certification. The cost of the vessel is the full £60,000, and they're basically requesting a one-off grant from the council to cover that investment. And it's proposed that this is funded from the strategic regeneration budget, which we've just discussed in the previous recommendations.
Thank you very much, Alison. Questions, comments? I take Guy first and then Jeff and then Rick.
Thank you, Chair. Of course, this is fantastic further investment in Berwick upon Tweed. One of the things the report's missed out on, of course, is that sea haulage is the best tonnage to CO2 emissions ratio going. If all of these ships had to be replaced with road haulage, the amount of emissions would be colossal. So it also fits into our climate change agenda.
Absolutely. Jeff.
Thank you, Leader. I had the fortunate ability to attend a meeting with the Berwick Harbour Commission to hear their plans for this boat. And I have to say that I'm thoroughly in favour of it. If you don't have a pilot boat, you don't have a harbour in Berwick. And in order to do anything else, you've got to have a boat. They are not in a good position in the moment, in that they are not really geared up for tourism and leisure. They have plans to do that. There are other harbours in Northumberland which already do that successfully, and they are trying to follow the lead of that to make sure that Berwick becomes a commercial entity in its own right. So I'm very much in favour of it. I think we need also, though, just to bear in mind, pilot boats are very small. So the use of it for other activities will be limited. And of course, they also have priorities which are for ships coming in and out, which it will have to be used for. So bearing that in mind, I think it's, and looking to the future to see the development of this port commercially for tourism and leisure, I'm very happy to support it.
That's good. Thank you very much indeed. Richard.
Thank you, Leader. So this is just further demonstration of our administration, our Conservative administration's backing for Berwick. And having had some of my thunder stolen on the things I was going to say, I'll instead just remind us of what we have done in Berwick, of course, which is £40 million into a new school and a consultation ongoing at the moment. The Maltings rebuild that will be part of the Borderlands Place programme, and a fantastic addition it will be to Berwick too. We've seen investment in the port thanks to our MP lobbying the government, and there's been new jetty works and so on and so forth, which, let's not forget, if that hadn't been done, there would be no need for a pilot boat because the port would be barely functional by this point. We've also seen investment into, announced just recently by the government, into the barracks. And I'm going to glance across at Councillor Seymour to see if there's anything that I've forgotten, because there's a leisure centre, of course, which is looking fantastic as well, and a new hospital and the work on the bridge. I mean, literally, I would have to write a list for the next time we come and talk about Berwick in terms of what we're doing for that fantastic community, and a credit to councillors like Councillor Seymour. Thank you.
Yes, I agree. You did actually miss out the culture zone, which is...
in the culture zone.
So there is a huge amount happening in Berwick, and I'm really grateful to Catherine Seymour for all the work she does there. It is important that we support the port. We're very happy to do this, and if it can take tourism opportunities, then that will be good as well. Even though it might be limited, I think that's really important and something that will make Berwick more of a destination place. So, are we happy with this proposal? Yeah, all happy? Yep. Good, thank you. So back to you, Alison. We're talking about the Great Northumberland Forest now, and I see Mark is here if there are any technical questions on that.
Thank you, Chair. So the Council has been awarded a grant of £1.6 million from the National Nature for Climate Fund to support the Great Northumberland Forest Initiative. There are 3 capital schemes that are being proposed in relation to the use of this grant. They are listed at 8.7. So the first one is Northumberland Trees on Your Land. Planting delivery will be of up to 90 hectares. The second is the Woodland Creation and Management Support. This will deliver up to 70 schemes, totalling 210 hectares. And the third is the Strategic Acquisition Grant, which is a resource for partners to purchase land which has the potential to link existing woodland or create woodland opportunities, and that is for up to 15 hectares. The use of this grant will take the form of grants to third parties. Those third parties will be responsible for any subsequent maintenance costs in relation to the tree planting which actually takes place. So the recommendation from the group is that the council actually accepts the grant of 1.6 million and add it to the capital programme. The added to the capital programme bit is actually missing from the recommendation at 2.4, Chair. So I'd suggest that we actually include that in the recommendation going forward.
Thank you very much. Mark, would you like to add a sentence or two to this?
Thank you, Leader. Yes, it's basically the funding which we've got is really to help us deliver more, especially looking at the existing funding gaps which are in place. It's a really good opportunity to, again, sort of continue the work to help tackle the challenges, particularly around climate change, and really to enable us to do more across the county.
Lovely. Thank you very much, Mark. Any questions? Richard first and then Guy.
Not a question so much as a statement, and just to say what a fantastic project the Great Northumberland Forest is, but and people in the county should understand it's not just about a handful of sites, and it's certainly not an attempt at anything like a creation of a Kielder. It's actually about something that will touch every part of our landscape, enhancing the landscape. It's a fantastic scheme. It looks at so many important factors when it comes to biodiversity, when it comes and the softer things about in addition to landscape, but as well about commercial forestry, about making sure that we've got sustainable products in the longer term that we can switch to as part of our climate change efforts, and as well that we bring in new opportunity for local people and local farmers to engage with this sector. The forestry and agricultural sector is absolutely critical to the Northumberland economy, and getting this money and this level of attention onto it is a real achievement for the administration and for the officers involved. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Richard. Guy.
Yes, thank you, Leader. Reiterate and welcome Councillor Wearmouth's point that this is about small pockets of land being planted, not about large swathes of new forestry. On Friday, I had the pleasure of going to a National Farmers Union event for tenant farmers in Alnwick, hosted by Baroness Rock, who's the leading the DEFRA tenancy reform working group. And one of the great topics of conversation was, you know, our landlords are going to kick us off and they're going to plant trees because that's going to be more profitable for them. And she was very clear that that is not the government's intention. That is not what the policy is about. And the whole reason we're having these working groups is to feed that message back to government and see how policy can be tweaked and amended to protect the tenant farming sector. The government wants a thriving tenant farming sector, and from these proposals, I think the tenant farming sector has nothing to worry about.
Indeed, absolutely right. And while we're talking about farming, we had a meeting of our farming group, which is actually a very high-powered commission that's going to produce a number of recommendations to the Minister. And whilst forestry is very important for Northumberland, it has to be the right tree in the right place, and must not impact on farmers' ability to do those things that they do best. And also to make sure that this is not another Kielder, this is a series of woodlands. It could be a community orchard, for example, at the edge of a town. So it's a great initiative. We've already seen just how keen residents of Northumberland are of trees. We've had 2 free tree offers now, both handing out in the region of 15,000 small trees to residents. And that's been a huge success. I remember that was talked about and ridiculed by some members of the opposition, saying this will never work, but it did, and it has. And that just demonstrates how important trees are to this county, but they have to be organised in the right place. It's absolutely the right thing to be doing this. I think we're all very encouraged and happy about this, are we? Yes. Wojciech? Yes? Good. Now we move on to fire and rescue. Pardon? Yeah, no, we've voted on it. I've seen it. I saw everyone and I said we're all happy. I didn't want to disturb anybody who's on their phone. The fire and rescue risk critical equipment.
Thank you, Chair. Again, there's a slight typo in the recommendation. The paragraph 11.7 referred to should read 9.6. As one would expect, the Fire and Rescue Service has an ongoing programme to replace its risk-critical equipment, including personal protective equipment. We would usually replace that at the end of what they deem its useful life. However, late in 2021, there's a new British standard that has come into play, and irrespective of condition, items of firefighters' PPE should be retired no more than 10 years from the date of manufacture, or after the end of the lifespan as determined by the manufacturer, whichever is shorter. Our Fire and Rescue Service have audited the manufacture date of all of the PPE that they currently hold, and it's apparent that for them to comply with the recommendations of the British standard, that their current replacement programme for their PPE needs to be brought forward by 1 year. The money is actually in the capital programme, and again they've agreed with the Section 151 officer that on this occasion the 108,200 which they had scheduled for 25-26 can in the main be brought forward to 22-23, and the reprofiling that is requested is at 9.6 in the report. The group think that the reason for the request is acceptable, and they're asking and recommending Cabinet approve the reprofiling as set out in the report.
Thank you. Colin Horncastle, who picks up this area within his
Yeah,
responsibilities.
Obviously, this equipment is needed. It's not just to keep our firefighters safe, but it's also our residents. But like it's just been explained with this new British standard that came in, and I'll read it out word for word what it says. It says, irrespective of condition, items of firefighters' PPE should be retired no more than 10 years from the date of manufacture or after the end of the lifespan as determined by the manufacturer, whichever is shorter. Well, obviously, some of our equipment does not comply with that. And again, the important word in here is we must comply with it. It's not costing us any more money, it's just being brought forward a year. So obviously, it's a really, really good thing. So I recommend it.
Thank you very much. When we're on fire and rescue, Colin, did I see something about another fire engine going to Ukraine from our service?
Indeed, me and Gordon were there last one day last week, very, very early, 7 o'clock. We were at West Hartford, and we saw a fire appliance, emergency rescue type vehicle, and a small ambulance go off. 9 of our staff went. Had to go the usual route, can't go out of North Shields because it's a national thing. There's a convoy going, so down to Dover, France, Germany, across to eastern Poland, where just short of the border, then Ukrainians come across and they're trained on our equipment. The firefighters that went are due back either tonight or tomorrow. And there's been some good publicity along the way of going through various towns and fire stations and everything. Much needed because, like I said before, about 2 or 3 weeks ago, there's over 100 fire stations in Ukraine being bombed and 250 fire appliances. At least that was weeks ago, just wiped out. So this national and probably international rescue effort is much needed.
Thank you very much. And that was the second trip, wasn't it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, second trip.
Yeah. So well done to everybody involved. That's great to be doing our thing there. So I think by show of hands, are we in favour of this one? Yes, we are. So thank you very much indeed. Now move on to Newbiggin and the Newbiggin Sports and Community Hub.
Thank you, Chair. The Council already has a capital investment scheme in its programme for the Newbiggin Sports and Community Hub. The total in there at the moment is 1.855 million, and that's made up of just over 1.5 million of council funding and some Football Foundation grant as well. However, the extent of the refurbishment in the community area of the building has been limited due to budgetary constraints and increasing costs. The Northumberland Communities Together's team has managed to secure some North of Tyne funding which can be used to improve community facilities, and the proposal is that they make a revenue contribution of £60,000 towards this capital scheme in order for that refurbishment in the community area to actually take place in the Newbiggin Sports and Community Hub. The Capital Strategy Group are recommending that the Cabinet actually approves that suggestion.
Thank you very much. Almost 2 million to Newbiggin. Yes, Wendy Patterson.
We had the pleasure with Councillor Watson last Thursday to go around and have a look at the work that's being done, and it's going to be an amazing facility for the people of Newbiggin. I just think they're going to really, really appreciate this.
Thank you very much indeed. Jeff.
Thank you. Yes, it's really good. I mean, it's easy, isn't it, to accept money in because it's money in and money out. Actually doesn't cost us anything, and it improves the facilities for the community. If anybody hasn't ever been to Newbiggin, I bet lots of you haven't, you should go and have a look at this facility because it's something I would like to see replicated throughout the county. It's really first class. It's going to have a cafe, it's going to have a library, it's going to have community rooms, it's going to have changing rooms for footballs, it's going to have a sports hall, it's going to have squash courts. It's excellent, and it's a refurbishment of an existing building. We have some other things to talk about later with Newbiggin, but this is just at the moment is just an ideal situation and one that I'm thoroughly in favour of.
That's great. Thank you very much. Any other questions, comments about this one? Are you all happy with this money for Newbigin? Yep, that's unanimous. So. And that takes us on now to the report of the Interim Senior Service Director about nominations to outside bodies. You've got them there. Chair. Barry.
Yes.
I was just about to say, Barry.
Yeah, I was just going to say, Chair, there are a couple of changes that we discussed the week before last.
Yes.
And I'll just outline them very quickly from there. The joint OSC for North East and North Cumbria, ICS and North and Central ICPs. Now, Paul Ezzell-Shelvin is now the Chair of the Health and Wellbeing Board, so he ought to take my place. Also, as that's to do with health, that's not really John Riddle's area, so I would take that alternative position as a substitute on that. And also Woodhorn Charitable Trust, it still has you listed. That was changed to me some time ago, and that just needs to be maintained as myself.
Okay, thank you. And with those changes, unless there's any additions from anyone, we will accept those changes. Are you all in favour of that, please? Yep, as amended. And that takes us to urgent business, and I have none, and nobody's told me there is any. So on that, can I thank you all, officers, very much indeed for your reports. Members, thank you very much indeed, and we'll see you at the next Cabinet meeting. Thank you.